The first sensation was wrong. Warmth. Not the sterile chill of the silvered afterlife my people sang about. Not the void I had already accepted, but gritty, living heat pressing against my face like a patient hand. Death shouldn't feel like this. Death should be finished. Final. Pain came next, sharp, grinding, wrong again. My ribs were shards of broken crystal scraping with every shallow breath. My left leg throbbed with a sick, wet pulse that promised infection or worse. Copper and ash coated my tongue. I tried to remember. Blue-violet sky over Velara, the sudden scream of alarms, the shuttle lurching like a wounded animal, pirate raiders tearing through our formation. Fire everywhere. Falling, not down, but in every direction at once. Then nothing. I had been so certain that was the end. I forced my eyes open. Smoke curled lazily around us. Twisted metal smoked in the distance. The desert stretched red and endless under Velara's merciless sun. And kneeling right beside me was a human. He was streaked with soot and dried blood, uniform torn at the shoulder, but his face, he was smiling. Not a grim professional smirk, not pity. A real, gentle smile that crinkled the corners of his brown eyes, as though finding me alive was the single best thing that had happened to him in years. "You're awake," he said softly, voice warm like the sand under me. I was starting to worry I'd have to carry on this conversation by myself. I stared, mind sluggish. Alive. The word didn't fit. I had died. I knew I had died. He reached for a canteen, supporting my head with careful fingers. Small sips. Trust me. The water tasted metallic and perfect. 3 swallows. He pulled it back gently. "I'm Jake," he said, still smiling that impossible smile. "Medic. And you, Your Majesty, just proved me right. I'm really good at my job." In my head, the words echoed like an accusation and a gift at the same time. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. The water helped. Not enough to dull the grinding in my ribs or the fire in my leg, but enough to make my thoughts stop swimming quite so slowly. Jake sat back on his heels, studying me with that same gentle expression, like I was a puzzle he was pleased to have solved, rather than a half-dead alien queen lying in the wreckage of her own diplomatic convoy. 2 days, he said quietly, answering the question I hadn't yet managed to ask. "You've been in and out for 2 days. Fever mostly. Some impressive delirium. You kept trying to give orders in a language I don't speak, then switched to unified standard to explain, in great detail, why someone named Kane deserved to be spaced without a suit. Heat crawled up my neck despite the pain. Kane, my chief advisor. The man who had insisted on this routine diplomatic flight to the neutral zone. The man whose face had been the last thing I saw before the first torpedo hit. My escort, I rasped. My voice sounded like broken glass. The others. Jake's smile faded. Not gone. Just dimmed, the way a lamp does when you turn it down instead of off. He looked away for a second, toward the twisted hull fragments that had once been my shuttle's forward section. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded like he meant it more than protocol required. "I got to you first because you were closest to the surface breach. The rest, there wasn't time. The structure was collapsing. Fires everywhere. By the time I could go back," he stopped. Swallowed. "You were the only one I could reach. I'm sorry, Your Majesty." The words landed like stones in deep water, ripples spreading slowly. Commander Vale, who had guarded my family since I was a child. Lieutenant Sira, barely 20 cycles past her trials, always laughing too loud at briefings. All of them, gone, while I slept, while I burned and fell and dreamed of nothing. I closed my eyes. Breathing hurt more now, and not just because of broken bones. Jake didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes. He simply waited, one hand resting lightly on the edge of the emergency blanket he'd spread beneath me. When I opened my eyes again, he was watching the horizon, squinting against the glare. "We're in the lower canyons of Velara," he continued after a moment. "About 40 kilometers from the impact zone, give or take. My own ship, medical evac, was hit in the same wave. Same pirates, or whoever they were flying under false colors. I managed to drag myself and my kit out before it blew. Found you 2 hours later. Been moving ever since. Carrying you mostly. Sorry about the bruises. I tried to avoid the worst rocks." I looked at him properly then. Mid-30s, maybe. Brown hair matted with dust. Uniform patched in 3 places with what looked like emergency sealant tape. dark circles under his eyes that spoke of more than 2 nights without real sleep, and still that stubborn gentleness in the set of his mouth. "You could have left me," I said. He snorted softly. "Yeah, and then I'd have to explain to my CO why I abandoned royalty in a war zone. Bad for the performance review." I almost laughed. It came out as a cough that made my ribs scream. He handed me the canteen again. "Small sips. Your stomach's going to riot if we push it." I drank. Then, because the silence felt heavier than the pain, I asked, "Why are we still moving?" "Because whoever hit us is still looking." He tapped the side of his temple where a tiny comms bead Saturday. "I've picked up patrol chatter. They're sweeping the crash sites. They want confirmation of kills, especially high-value ones." His eyes met mine. "Your high value, Your Majesty." "Aira," I corrected without thinking. "When we're alone. Just Aira." He blinked, surprised. Then the corner of his mouth lifted again. "Okay, Aira. Then you can call me Jake. None of that medic core nonsense." Another silence. Shorter this time. "There's something else," he said carefully. "Your guard. Not all of them are accounted for." I tensed. "What?" "I saw movement yesterday, thermal bloom on the ridge above us. One figure. Armed. Moving parallel. Not closing yet, but watching." He hesitated. "The silhouette matched your people's combat armor. Light plating. Crest on the shoulder." My heart stuttered. "One of mine. Maybe. Or maybe someone wearing salvaged gear. But if it is one of yours," he let the implication hang, "they would think I was dead. Or worse, they might think I had survived because I had defected. Collaborated. The pirates hadn't struck randomly. Someone had given them our exact flight path." Kane's voice whispered in memory. "This route is secure, Majesty. I have verified it personally." I forced the thought down. Later. I could break later. Jake seemed to read my face. "Hey," he said softly. "One crisis at a time. Right now we need distance from the crash site and shelter before nightfall." Velara's nights drop to -40. I've got a destination in mind. Old Earth colony bunkers, pre-war. About 12 clicks east. Underground. Defensible. Scanners show they're mostly intact. I looked down at my leg. The makeshift splint he'd fashioned from wreckage and medical tape looked laughably inadequate. Walking was impossible. Crawling would be torture. "I can't." "I know," he interrupted gently. "That's why I've been carrying you. And I'll keep carrying you. You're lighter than most supply crates I've humped, and you complain less." I stared at him. He was serious, and trying, very badly, to make me smile. "You're insane," I whispered. Charming description. "I prefer dedicated professional." He stood, brushing sand from his knees. "We move in 10. I need to break camp. You rest. Yell if anything starts bleeding more enthusiastically." He turned away to gather his gear. Canteen, medkit, a compact survival rifle slung across his back. I watched him work. Efficient, unhurried, humming something under his breath that sounded like an old human folk tune. And somewhere beneath the pain and grief and disbelief, a small, treacherous part of me thought. He smiled like my living mattered, like I had done something remarkable simply by opening my eyes. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. The phrase looped again, quieter now. Not mocking, almost comforting. Jake glanced back. "You good?" I nodded once. "For now. Good enough." He crouched beside me again, slid one arm under my shoulders, the other under my knees. "This part sucks. Tell me if I hit a nerve." He lifted me carefully. Pain flared white-hot, then settled to a dull roar. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. "Still with me?" he asked. "Yes." "Then let's go ruin someone's day by staying alive." He started walking. Behind us, on the ridge he had pointed out, a faint thermal shimmer flickered once, then vanished. Someone was watching, and they were armed. If you've watched this far, then this story is really interesting to you. Please confirm it by clicking like under this video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will help me understand what story to publish for you next. Write in the comments who the alien woman in this story looks like, and who you would like to see in the next one. Tell me, do you like the comic book style? Let's move on. Jake carried me like I weighed nothing more than a supply crate he'd forgotten to log. Each step sent fresh spikes through my leg and ribs, but he moved with the steady rhythm of someone who'd done this before, too many times. The canyons of Velara swallowed us slowly, red rock walls rising sharp on both sides, narrowing until the sky was just a thin violet ribbon overhead. The air grew cooler as we descended, the sun blocked by overhangs. Wind whistled through narrow gaps, carrying the faint metallic tang of old machinery buried somewhere beneath the sand. He didn't talk constantly. Thank the stars for that. When the pain crested and my breathing turned ragged, he simply adjusted his grip, murmured, "Breathe through it," and kept moving. But when the silence stretched too long and I started spiraling, replaying the explosion, Vale's last shout, Syrah's laugh cut short, he filled it. "So," he said after maybe the 4th kilometer, voice low so it wouldn't echo off the walls, "Tell me about fleet tactics. Your people favor those crescent formations, right? The ones that look beautiful on holographic displays but collapse like wet paper if someone flanks." I huffed, almost a laugh, almost a cough. "They're elegant. Adaptive curvature allows rapid redistribution of shield harmonics." "Elegant is code for expensive and fragile," he replied cheerfully. "Humans learned that the hard way during the Orion skirmishes. We switched to ugly brick formations. Less pretty, more survivors. You mock elegance because your species still drinks coffee." He actually chuckled. The sound vibrated through his chest into my back, where I was pressed against him. "Coffee is sacred. Synthetic stims taste like regret. Coffee tastes like someone cares enough to grind beans at 0500. I tilted my head against his shoulder to see his face better. Sweat tracked clean lines through the dust on his temples. "Why do you do that?" "Joke. When everything is this." He considered it. "Because if I don't, the quiet gets loud. And loud quiet makes people freeze. Freezing gets people killed." A pause. "Also, you have a very dignified way of glaring when I'm ridiculous. It's entertaining." I glared on principle. He grinned wider. We reached a narrow defile just as the light began to slant gold. Jake set me down carefully against a smooth boulder, checked my bandages, tightened one around my thigh where blood had started seeping through again, and scanned the ridge above us with his compact field scope. "Still there," he muttered. "Same thermal signature. Keeping distance. Not closing. Yet." My stomach twisted. If it's one of mine, then they think you're a collaborator. Or worse, a willing participant. He lowered the scope, which means someone fed the pirates intel. Someone who knew exactly where your shuttle would be when it would be vulnerable. "Kane," I whispered before I could stop myself. Jake didn't react with shock or disbelief. He just nodded once, like he'd already suspected. "Your advisor. The one you wanted to space in your fever dreams." He planned the route. Insisted on it. Said the pirate activity was exaggerated. Jake didn't press. Instead, he offered me the canteen and a ration bar that tasted like sweetened cardboard. While I chewed mechanically, he spoke about human habits again. How his mother used to make coffee on cold mornings even when the station recyclers failed. How the smell was more important than the caffeine. Small, pointless stories. But they anchored me. Kept the grief from swallowing everything. When we moved again, he carried me piggyback style this time. Easier on my leg. My arms looped around his neck, chin on his shoulder. Close enough that I could feel his heartbeat, steady despite the strain. "You're tired," I said. "I've had worse shifts." Liar. Professional hazard. The bunkers appeared without warning. A camouflaged hatch half buried in a rock slide, marked only by a faded Earth colony emblem. A blue globe crossed by white orbits. Jake set me down, swept sand from the access panel, and keyed in an old override code he claimed to have found in a manual once. The door hissed open reluctantly. Stale air rushed out, cool, dry, smelling faintly of ozone and long-dead electronics. Inside, a short corridor leading to a main chamber. Dim emergency strips flickered to life at our movement. Consoles covered in dust. Storage lockers. A medical bay alcove that looked surprisingly intact. Jake helped me to a low bunk that had once been an officer's cot. I sank onto it with a groan I couldn't suppress. "Home sweet temporary home," he said, already moving to check systems. "Power's at 12%. Enough for lights, basic air scrub, maybe the med scanner if I'm gentle." While he worked, I watched him. The way he moved, methodical, unhurried. The way he talked to the machines under his breath like they were old friends. The way he glanced back every few minutes to make sure I was still breathing. "Why me?" I asked again, quieter this time. He paused, fingers on a diagnostic panel. "Because you were alive. Because I could reach you. Because leaving someone to burn feels worse than carrying them through a desert." He turned fully. "And because when I pulled you out, you were still fighting. Clinging to the seat frame, even unconscious." That kind of stubborn deserves a chance. I looked away. My people called that kind of tenacity royal resolve. He called it stubborn. He rigged a basic proximity alarm using debris from his pack, thin wires, and a salvaged sensor node. Then he sat across from me on the floor, back against the wall, rifle across his knees. "Rest," he said. "I'll take first watch. You haven't slept. Neither have you. Doctor's orders." I wanted to argue. Instead, exhaustion pulled like gravity. My eyes drifted shut, but before sleep took me fully, I heard him murmur, almost to himself, "You snore, by the way, like a malfunctioning coolant pump. It's kind of endearing." I smiled despite everything. Small, hidden, and in the darkness behind my eyelids, the words returned softer now. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. Jake had carried that grin with him through 2 days of hell, through canyons and grief and the shadow of a hunter on the ridge. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time since waking, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to die anymore. Sleep came in fragments, sharp, feverish dreams of falling forever, of fire licking the edges of my vision, of Vale's hand reaching for me and dissolving into ash. Each time I jerked awake, gasping, Jake was there, not hovering, just present. A low voice saying, "Easy, you're safe." A cool cloth pressed to my forehead, fresh bandages that smelled faintly of antiseptic, and something herbal he'd scavenged from his kit. By the third cycle, maybe morning, maybe not, time blurred underground. He had the medbay scanner humming at low power. Blue light swept over me in slow passes while he frowned at the readout. Fractured femur stabilized, but you've got micro tears in the femoral artery wall. Nothing catastrophic yet, but we need to keep you off it for at least another day. He tapped the screen. "Your people's Regan factor is ridiculous. Humans would be looking at 6 weeks minimum. You're already knitting." I watched him from the bunk. "You talk to machines like they're people. Habit. They listen better than most patients." He glanced up, caught my expression, and softened. "You're allowed to be angry. Or scared. Or both. You don't have to be regal 24/7 down here." The words hit harder than they should have. Regal. That was the mask I'd worn since the day they placed the crown on my head at 19 cycles. The mask that said pain was weakness, doubt was treason, grief was a luxury reserved for private chambers far from prying eyes. "I don't know how to stop," I admitted. Voice small, almost lost in the hum of the ventilation. Jake didn't offer empty comfort. He simply pulled a second stool over, sat so our knees almost touched, and waited. So I talked. About the weight of decisions that killed people no matter which way you chose. About Cain's constant whispers that mercy was weakness, that alliances with humans were temporary at best and suicidal at worst. About how the crown felt heavier every year, like it was slowly crushing the person who used to laugh at bad poetry and sneak extra desserts from state banquets. Jake listened, really listened. No interruptions, no judgments. When I ran out of words and the silence pressed in again, he spoke quietly. "My family was on New Canaan when the secessionist fleet hit. Colony betrayal. Someone on the inside sold the shield codes for a promise of power. My sister was 12. She liked drawing star maps. My dad used to tease her that she'd navigate us all to Andromeda someday." He looked at his hands. I was off-world. Training rotation. Came back to rubble and a list of names. I became a medic because I couldn't save them. Figured maybe I could save the next person. I stared at him. The casual way he said it, like sharing a minor inconvenience, made the ache in my chest sharper. "You understand?" I whispered. "More than I'd like to." He met my eyes. "That's why I didn't leave you in the wreckage. Because someone once left my family. And I swore I'd never be the person who walks away when breathing is still possible." Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable. Heavy, but shared. Then he stood, stretched, and tried to lighten it. "Also, you threatened to execute Cain at least 6 times in your sleep. I'm invested now. I want to see if you follow through." I laughed, genuine, startling. It hurt my ribs, but felt good anyway. We spent the next hours exploring the bunker. Jake helped me hobble to the main console room on a makeshift crutch he'd fashioned from a support strut. Dust-covered terminals still held fragments of old Earth data. We powered one up carefully, low draw, no external signals. Most files were corrupted. Supply logs, personnel rosters. Then Jake found it. An encrypted personal journal from the colony administrator, dated just before abandonment. He cracked the basic cipher in under 10 minutes. Amateur hour, he muttered. We read together. The last entries described growing tension with off-world factions, suspicions of sabotage. Then one final, frantic paragraph. Kane's emissary arrived today. Promised protection in exchange for shield harmonics data. Said the Queen's shuttle route would be the perfect demonstration of commitment. If we provide the codes, our colony survives. If not, we become another cautionary tale. My blood turned cold. Kane, I breathed. He didn't just leak my route. He orchestrated the entire attack. Used your colony's old data as leverage. The pirates weren't random. They were hired. Jake's face hardened. He copied the file to his personal drive. Small, encrypted, untraceable. Proof. Solid. Timestamped. Voice print match if we ever get to a tribunal. I leaned against the console, leg throbbing, mind racing. He wanted me gone. Clean assassination disguised as pirate action. No witnesses. No scandal. Just a tragic loss and an empty throne for him to guide. Or claim, Jake added grimly. We sat in silence again. The weight of betrayal settled like dust. Then Jake did something unexpected. He reached over and covered my hand with his. Not possessive, just there. Warm. Steady. You're not alone in this anymore, he said simply. I turned my hand palm up. Our fingers laced without thought. I don't know what comes next, I admitted. Next is we survive the night. Then we get off this rock. Then we make sure Kane never sits on any throne, yours or anyone else's. I looked at him. Really looked. The lines of exhaustion around his eyes. The stubborn set of his jaw. The way he still managed that half-smile even now. And the echo returned, softer, warmer. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. That grin had pulled me back from the edge twice now. Once in the wreckage. Once here, in the dim light of a forgotten bunker, when betrayal threatened to finish what the pirates started. I squeezed his hand. Thank you, I whispered, for not letting me stay dead. He squeezed back. You're welcome. Though I have to warn you, my bedside manner includes terrible puns and mandatory coffee lectures once we're off-world. I smiled despite everything. I think I can live with that. Outside, somewhere in the canyons, our hunter was still moving. Closer now. The proximity alarm would sing soon. But inside these walls, for the first time since waking, I felt something stronger than pain. Hope. Fragile. Dangerous. But real. The rescue came at dawn, or what passed for dawn in the canyons, a thin line of pale gold bleeding over the rimrock. Jake's proximity alarm chirped once, sharp and urgent. He was already moving before my eyes fully opened, rifle in hand, motioning me to stay low behind the console stack. 2 signatures, he whispered. 1 human, patrol pattern. 1 yours. Crested armor. Closing fast. My heart slammed against cracked ribs. The hunter had finally decided to stop watching. Jake dragged me deeper into the medical alcove, propped me against a bulkhead with a clear line of sight to the entrance corridor. He pressed the survival rifle into my hands. Light, compact, recoil dampened. Point and squeeze if it comes to that. Don't hesitate. I won't, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He slipped out like smoke, vanishing into the shadows of the main chamber. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then voices, muffled, echoing off metal. Told you she was dead. No thermal last night. Orders were confirmation. Body or proof. Move. The second voice, my guard's voice. Lieutenant Torin. Vale's second in command. Loyal. Ruthless. And now convinced I had sold out my own people. Footsteps. Closer. Jake's voice cut through, calm as ever. Easy there. Hands where I can see them. You're trespassing on a medical shelter. Galactic convention applies. A harsh laugh. Torin. Human. You're the one who pulled her out. Where is she? Where is the traitor queen? Jake didn't flinch. I could hear it in his tone. She's recovering. And she's no traitor. Someone set her up. Same someone who leaked the route. Convenient. Step aside. I'd rather not get shot today. How about we talk first? A scuffle. Metal clanged. A grunt. Then silence. I gripped the rifle tighter, finger hovering over the trigger guard. Then Jake's voice again, strained but steady. Aira. Clear. I limped out, crutch scraping, rifle raised one-handed. Torin was on his knees, wrists flex-bound with Jake's emergency cuffs. A fresh bruise bloomed on his temple. The human patrol scout, unconscious, lay nearby, stun setting still glowing on Jake's sidearm. Torin looked up at me. Shock, then fury, then something broken. Majesty, you're alive. Yes, I said, and I know who sold us out. I told him everything. The journal entry, Kane's name, the proof on Jake's drive. Torin listened, face paling under the dust and blood. Kane ordered the route change himself, he whispered. Said it was secure. Said you approved last-minute adjustments. His eyes met mine. I believed him. I know, I said quietly. So did I. Jake cut the bindings. We can settle blame later. Right now we need extraction. Your people will listen to you. Mine will listen to me. But we have to get off Velara before more pirates, or Kane's cleanup crew, arrive. Torin nodded slowly. I have a long-range beacon. Hidden. Emergency channel. Fleet will respond. We moved fast after that. Jake carried me again. Torin took point, rifle sweeping. The human scout woke groggy but compliant once Torin explained in clipped unified standard. Jake patched him up on the march. The beacon was buried under a cairn of red stones. Torin activated it. A faint pulse answered almost immediately, orbital assets inbound. ETA 3 hours. We waited in the shadow of an overhang. Jake sat beside me, shoulder to shoulder. Torin paced a perimeter. The scout dozed against a rock. You kept your promise, I said to Jake. Which one? The not letting you die part, or the terrible puns part? Both. He smiled. That same gentle grin that had haunted my dreams since the wreckage. Good. Hate to break a streak. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. When we get back, things will be different. Yeah, he agreed softly. They always are after something like this. The dropship arrived on schedule, sleek, black, no markings. Human medevac markings on one side. My people's crescent crest on the other. Joint recovery. Someone upstairs had decided cooperation was expedient. They loaded us quickly. Med teams swarmed. Jake handed me off to a stretcher but stayed close, one hand on the rail the whole time. Torin saluted sharply. The scout was taken for debrief. In the medbay pod, under bright white lights, a doctor scanned me while Jake hovered like a worried shadow. Stable, the doctor announced. Impressive recovery rate. We'll transfer to Aurora Station for full regen. Aurora, the orbital capital. Home. Court. Kane. I reached for Jake's hand. He took it without hesitation. Stay with me, I whispered. Wasn't planning on going anywhere, he replied. The ship jumped. Stars streaked past the viewports. When we docked at Aurora, the reception was orchestrated. Honor guard. Medals pinned to Jake's chest before he could protest. A formal audience scheduled for debrief and commendation. Polite smiles everywhere. But the moment we were alone in the guest suite, palatial, gilded, cold, reality hit. I stood at the viewport, staring at the blue-green curve of the planet below. Jake came up behind me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. It feels wrong, I said. Everything exactly as I left it. Except I'm not the same. He didn't try to fix it. Just stood there. You're allowed to feel that. A soft chime. The door panel lit. Incoming message. Kane's seal. I opened it. Formal language. Concern for my health. Request for immediate private audience. Subtext thick as radiation. Explain the human. Explain the delay. Explain why the Queen returned with an attachment that could be politically disastrous. I deleted it without replying. Jake raised an eyebrow. Bold. Kane wants me to send you away. With honors. Compensation. Gratitude. But gone. Jake's expression didn't change. And I'm not sending you anywhere. He exhaled slowly. Your court's going to hate that. Let them. I turned to face him fully. You asked me once, in the temple, if I was all right. No one else has. Not my council. Not my guards. Not even Torin, though he tried. They ask about recovery. About duties. About optics. Never about me. Jake's eyes softened. Are you? I don't know, I admitted. But with you here, I think I could figure it out. He stepped closer. Then I'm staying. Forks and protocol be damned. I laughed, quiet real. The forks are hopeless. See? Already progress. Outside the viewport, Aurora Station spun slow and majestic. Inside, for the first time since waking in wreckage, the crown felt a little lighter. But Kane's message lingered like smoke. He wasn't finished. And neither were we. The guest suite on Aurora Station felt like stepping into someone else's life. Everything gleamed. polished crystal panels, soft ambient lighting tuned to mimic planetary dawn, furniture that cost more than most colony ships. But the air tasted recycled and careful, like every breath had been approved by committee. I stood at the viewport longer than necessary, watching shuttles drift like silver insects against the black. Jake waited behind me, quiet, giving me space without making it obvious. A soft chime broke the silence. Another message, this time from Lady Soren, my mother's old friend turned council matriarch. Polite concern wrapped around steel. Your Majesty, the court eagerly awaits your full report. Certain attachments have raised questions of propriety. An audience with Advisor Kane is strongly recommended at your earliest convenience. Optics matter, especially now. I deleted it too. Jake cleared his throat. They're circling. They always circle. I turned. Kane's already drafting reports. Compromise of judgment. Inappropriate influence of a lesser species. Potential security risk. He'll frame you as a liability. A human who saved the queen but now threatens the throne by existing too close to it. Jake leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I'm flattered. Never been called a threat to galactic stability before. Usually it's just that guy who drinks too much coffee. I tried to smile. It didn't quite reach my eyes. They don't understand. They see protocol, precedent, power dynamics. They don't see. I gestured vaguely between us. This. He pushed off the wall, closed the distance slowly. Then tell me what this is. Because from where I'm standing, it's two people who survived a crash, a desert, a betrayal, and a really uncomfortable bunk in an abandoned lab. That's not nothing. I looked up at him. The same stubborn kindness in his eyes. The same gentle grin that had first pulled me back from the edge. It's everything, I said quietly. You're the only person who's asked if I'm all right. Not recovered. Not ready to resume duties. Not politically viable. Just all right. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from my face with careful fingers. So, are you? The question hung there, simple and devastating. I felt the answer rise like pressure behind my sternum. No, I whispered. I thought I was dead. I made peace with it. Then I woke up and you were smiling like my breathing was some kind of miracle. And now I'm back here and everything's the same except me. The court wants the old queen back. Polished. Certain. Untouchable. But I don't know if she exists anymore. Jake didn't interrupt. He just listened. I keep seeing the wreckage, I continued. Vale's hand reaching. Syrah's laugh cut off. The fire. And then your face. That stupid, gentle grin. Like none of it was final. My voice cracked. You made me believe being alive mattered. And no one here has looked at me that way since I returned. They look at a survivor. A symbol. A problem to manage. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell the faint trace of desert dust still clinging to his uniform despite the station laundry. I look at you the same way I did in the canyons. Because you're still the same person who threatened to execute Kane in her sleep. Who argued fleet formations while half-conscious and bleeding out. Who trusted a random human medic enough to let him carry her through hell. Tears burned behind my eyes. I hadn't cried since the crash. Not once. Queens don't cry in public, or in private, if they can help it. Jake saw them anyway. He didn't wipe them away. Just let them fall. Then, quietly, I have something to tell you. I nodded, not trusting my voice. That smile and the wreckage. He exhaled. It wasn't just bedside manner. It wasn't professional relief. I'd spent 2 days convinced you were going to die. Every time your pulse dipped, every time fever spiked, I thought, this is it. I'm going to lose her. And when your eyes finally opened, I was terrified and relieved and stupidly happy all at once. Because you were alive. And because I didn't want to be alone in that desert with another failure on my conscience. He paused, swallowed. But it wasn't just that. It was you. The way you fought, even unconscious. The way you looked at me like I was real, not just a tool. The way you laughed. Once, at my terrible jokes when you had every reason not to. I stayed because saving you became the most important thing I'd done in years. And I kept staying because talking to you, listening to you, being near you, it started feeling like the most important thing, period. My breath caught. I'm not good at court, he went on. I'll use the wrong fork. I'll make inappropriate jokes during state dinners. Lady Soren will probably try to have me spaced. But if you want me here, not as a hero, not as a guest, not as some political inconvenience, just as me, then I'm here. For as long as you want. I reached up, cupped his face with both hands. The stubble under my palms felt grounding. Real. Stay, I said. Not because you saved me. Not because the court will hate it. Stay because when I woke up thinking death had claimed me, you smiled like my breathing alone was a victory. Stay because you see me. Not the crown. Not the survivor. Me. He leaned his forehead against mine, closed his eyes. Breathing is remarkable, he murmured. I stand by that. I laughed, shaky, wet, real. We stood like that for a long time. Foreheads touching, hands tangled, the station humming around us like it didn't matter. Then a new chime, priority alert. I pulled back just enough to glance at the panel. Torin's face appeared when I accepted. Majesty, we have a problem. Kane's called an emergency session of the council. He's presenting evidence, fabricated, I suspect, that your association with the human medic constitutes a security breach. He's pushing for immediate isolation and review of your command authority until stability is restored. My blood went cold. Jake's jaw tightened. He's moving fast. He always does, I said. Then, to Torin, stall him. 1 hour. I need time. Torin nodded sharply. 1 hour. I'll do what I can. The feed cut. I looked at Jake. We have proof. The journal recording. Kane's voice. Timestamps. It's enough to turn this around, if we play it right. Jake nodded. Then we play it right. But we do it together. I straightened. Felt the old regal posture settle over me. Not as a mask this time, but as armor. Together. He grinned. That same impossible grin. And just like that, the echo returned, steady and sure. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. That grin had saved me once. Now it was going to help me save everything else. The council chamber fell silent as I entered with Jake at my side. Kane rose smoothly. Your Majesty, we must address certain irregularities. I didn't sit. First, a recording. Torin projected it. The administrator's frantic voice naming Kane, the leaked route, the deal with pirates. Voice print, 99. 87% match. Timestamps perfect. Kane paled. Fabricated. Your archived briefings confirm it. I cut in. You planned my death to seize power. Torin stepped forward. I confirm. Kane altered the manifest. He knew the vulnerability. Security drones bound Kane's wrists. He was escorted out amid stunned silence. I faced the council. I returned changed. I survived because one man refused to let me die. He carried me through hell, asked if I was all right when no one else did. He sees me, not the crown, but me. I looked at Jake. He stays, not as guest or hero, because when I woke thinking death had claimed me, he smiled like my breathing was a victory. If that threatens your stability, perhaps it should. No one spoke. Session adjourned. The room emptied. Then only us. Jake smiled, that gentle grin. You did it. We did. I kissed him, soft, sure. He kissed back like he'd waited since the wreckage. She believed death had claimed her, then woke to a human's compassionate grin. I whispered. Never letting that go? He asked. Never. He held me close. Stars turned beyond the viewport. Kane was gone. The court would adapt, or break. I wasn't alone anymore. I had someone who fought for my life. Someone who smiled like every breath mattered. And the future felt like rising, not falling. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments what moment in this story impressed you the most. Tell me, do you like the comic book style? And also check out the other videos that just appeared on your screen. See you in the next video.